Welcome to the Luxury Listing Specialist Podcast with Michael LaFido, where top luxury agents reveal their best practices, plus interviews with real estate industry influencers, thought leaders, and luxury marketing experts. You'll come away from each episode with new strategies and tactics to dominate high-end homes in any market. And now for the latest episode of Luxury Listing Specialist. Here's your host, luxury real estate expert, coach, and trainer, Michael LaFido.
Everybody, welcome Luxury Fridays. I'm your host, Michael LaFido. We have exciting guests today. We got a lot to cover. Just want to go over some recap of previous Luxury Fridays and what's coming on. We already have a guest lined up for next week that I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about overcoming obstacles and goal setting. And this year, we're going to talk about this episode. We'll talk a little bit about some financial goals if you have, and trying to figure out what your hourly rate is. We have some examples there. I have a guest from a very luxury second market, but primary market for some. We're going to talk a little bit with Collin here in a minute. And he's doing some really exciting things on how to create the ultimate buyer's experience. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have some people watching from our Instagram as well. And don't forget, on Instagram, we have the ability to answer questions, but it's much easier to answer those questions through our YouTube channel or our LinkedIn. So that's where I'm recommending that you guys ask those questions. Again, I'm your host, Michael LaFido. You're in the right place. If you're a team leader, you're an individual agent, you're a broker owner, and you're looking to work smarter, not harder. And that's what our goal is for our Friday live streams. If you're a consumer, you're thinking of buying or selling, ask away. But this is geared primarily towards broker owners, team leaders, individual agents. This is Luxury Fridays. Again, we have some really exciting things to cover today. And just a reminder, if you guys have a question for me or my guest, all you got to do is just type that into the comment section. Type in your questions to the comment section, and we'll get to them. Let me know where you're watching from, and I'll be bringing my guest on here in a bit. But again, we have our podcast. We are releasing really great episodes. We just recently released this week, at the time of the stream, a podcast talking about time management and working on your green zone, your green activities in the morning. Those are income producing, lead gen, following up with prospects, and then doing some of the mundane tasks in the afternoon. That's what our most recent podcast was on. And again, to listen to our podcast, it is on iTunes and Spotify. All you got to do is go to luxurylistingpodcast.com, Luxury Listing Podcast. And if you are interested in being a guest on our podcast, shoot me a note. As always, if you have a question, if you're watching a replay of this and you have a question for me, you have a question for the guest, go ahead and shoot me an email, michael@marketingluxurygroup.com, michael@marketingluxurygroup. And again, our podcast is Luxury Listing Podcast. We do have an exciting announcement. We're going to be going to Cabo, Mexico for our upcoming designation training. So if you are interested in joining me in Cabo, all you got to do is go to luxurydesignation.com, Luxury Designation. It's going to be on Friday, March 31st, full day designation training. And we're really excited about it. The last time we did a full out designation training in Mexico was on March 10th of 2020, just before the pandemic and everything shut down. We were down in Mazatlan helping Keller Williams Mexico launch their luxury division. So this is going to be our first luxury designation training in Mexico since the pandemic. So we're excited about that. And then also, we're excited to share with you, we are launching a new book called Secrets of Top Luxury Agents. Secrets of Top Luxury Agents. So if you're interested in finding out more information on that, shoot me an email, michael@marketingluxurygroup. Bottom line is, you would be a contributor to our book via a chapter. Again, the name of the book is called Secrets of Top Luxury Agents. We're going to be taking applications for that, and we're going to be launching that book by June. You'll have your own book. It's a way to differentiate yourself in your given market. And we're finalizing a special guest as our forward of the book, and more to come on that in the future. All right. As always, if you're getting value from this, please leave us a like, leave us a review. Our guests are not compensated. They are donating their time just like I am. And with that being said, I'm going to bring on my guest right now, Collin Kelley. Collin, are you there? All right, Collin, I do not have you volume-wise. So check your volume. I cannot hear you right now. Try speaking again. I can see you perfectly, but I can't hear you. All right, so I'm going to bring Collin back in. And, hold on for a second. Try that, Collin. Your mic is not connected. It's saying your mic is not connected. Maybe cancel out. Collin, maybe cancel out your desktop because that's still open too. And maybe cancel that out. I see the camera still on your desktop. So cancel that out, your laptop, and try me again, and I'll bring you back in. I got Collin Kelley. We're going to be talking about ultimate buyer's experience. He's been licensed for 13 years, did over 25 million last year. His volume of average sale price ranges from 600,000 over $1 million, depending on how much inventory he has at that given time. Yes, if you guys have a question, please type it on. Thank you for your request to be on. The best way for you that are watching on our Instagram is to go to our YouTube channel. Literally go to youtube.com/@luxury specialist. We'd be happy to bring you on. That's the best way for us to bring you on via our YouTube channel. Again, you can either go to YouTube, type in Marketing Luxury Group, or better yet, go to YouTube.com/@luxury specialist. YouTube.com/@luxury specialist. That's the way for us to bring you on camera. All right, I'm going to try Collin again. Let's try this one more time.
Are we working okay now?
We're working okay. The image isn't the best, but I can hear you, and that's most important. Collin,
it's like being at Wrigley Field in one of those obstructed box seats where you've got like the pole in the way.
Yeah, we call that obstructed view seats at Wrigley Field, where you have the big pole in front of you. In this case, we got a big old, I think, buffalo out there in Idaho that is in your office, and it's blocking a third of your camera. Even if you want to shift over to your left, there you go. Yes, let's do that. That'll be better. This way we got you in full view and we can hear you. I got with us Collin Kelley, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, correct?
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Yes, correct.
Yes,
like heart of the lane in French.
Yes.
But I took Spanish, so I don't know. That could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm Italian and I'm from Chicago, so my French isn't the best, but I do appreciate you being on today. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things. Tell everybody, I mentioned briefly, you've been licensed 13 years. You got a team. Last year, you did a little over 25 million. And a topic that you and I talked about offline a little bit. I'm always trying to fill voids to our viewership, our listenership on various topics. So today we're going to talk about the ultimate buyer's experience. In particular, you have a listing as a listing agent or a marketing agent. How can you differentiate your product, in this case, your listing, but how can you differentiate the experience, not just for the buyer, but you represent the seller, to create urgency in a shifting market, to create urgency so that a buyer and a buyer's agent will choose your listing over the competition. And that's going to be really what we focus on today. Is that pretty accurate?
I think that's accurate. I think that's the topic of the day, the topic of the past year. We've gone from a market 12 months ago nationwide where we were seeing multiple offers on almost every property in virtually every price range. And we've gone to a market where obviously we're all aware of the fact that interest rates have gone up. I refrain from using the term skyrocketed because those of us that have been around for a while saw, 6, 7, 8% interest rates are what you would see in a healthy market.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of that is buyer education. And our peer group may or may not have experienced this level yet if they haven't been with it. And so that VIP buyer experience, that ultimate buyer experience, where you as the listing agent curate the best possible experience for any buyers that are going through your seller's listings, in order that they just have this immense sense of comfort, because there is so much more inventory than there was relative to 12 months ago. And we're seeing more price reductions market wide. You see it nationwide. If you follow some of the statistics, the average, the one that I saw at the end of Q3, I haven't seen any updates for Q4, but nationwide, 38% of properties had a price reduction prior to selling.
Yeah, and
they sold it all.
Yeah, statistically speaking, you're right, 25 to 30%. So we're definitely higher than what than we normally have been, and that is an indication that there might be a shift in the market, right? You hear that shift, or shifting from a neutral market, balanced market, to to what we call a buyer's market, right? And so tell everybody a little bit about your market. People hear Idaho, they think of potatoes, they think of the blue AstroTurf from Boise State. Tell everybody a little bit about Idaho and what percent of the clients that you're working with, as well as maybe historically speaking, are maybe these are jet set destinations, these are second houses, these are investment properties. What percent are you seeing in your market?
Well, we're in northern Idaho. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, we are about 45 minutes drive time to the east of Spokane, Washington, which is the second largest city in Washington. And so people that are not flying in private are flying in typically into Spokane's International Airport. If they're flying in private, there is a private airport, Pappy Bollington Field at Coeur d'Alene, which we do see quite a few of our luxury buyers come through, but a little bit more on that later. Anyways, our average price point at the beginning of last year was right around $525. Okay. We've now dropped down to about $450, where the average price point was. My average sales price through Q2 was about $1.2 million. Okay. And it dipped down with the changing in the market.
Sure.
You started to see things shift.
And would you say overall your market is what I would call a second home market?
It's absolutely a luxury market. It's absolutely a secondary market. About 70% of my clientele comes from out of area. All right, and so much of what I'm working with are people that are buying a second or third property, or they're retirees that are moving to the area and are purchasing their retirement home.
So, you're a second home market there. You've been licensed for 13 years. Later, I'll share in the chat a link that a company that is it's not an auction company. They sell fractional ownership. They've put together the list, and it might be a little biased because it might be their personal list of top 10 markets that are the secondary home markets. And there's Idaho isn't in there, like your part of Idaho isn't in there, but doesn't mean they're right, you're wrong, or vice versa. It's just always important for you as an agent to have your finger on the pulse and understand various tools and resources. So let's talk a little bit about you take on a listing. And today's topic, I have Collin Kelley. Again, real quick, my name is Michael Lafito. For those of you that are watching live, or perhaps you're watching a replay of this, you're watching Luxury Fridays, you're listening to perhaps our podcast, and we come to you with consistent guests that are either top luxury agents, strategic partners, maybe affiliate services that can provide additional tools and resources, where we're going to work on mindset, we're going to work on developing a business plan and best practices to protect the consumer, best marketing practices. Literally, just this week at the time of filming this, I was down in Fort Lauderdale. I had a younger agent fly me down there. He secured 4 listing appointments and a 5th potentially, but we made that into a conference call, anywhere from a $5.3 million property in Fort Lauderdale to a 7.5. I went on a $22.9 million listing appointment. on the back of the property, literally there was a $25 million yacht, 200-foot yacht, and on one dock, and on the other they had an 82-foot yacht. And so, those are some services that we offer. That's our closer program. But I love touching on other markets and bringing on various guests. So, Collin, the topic for you today is going to be the ultimate buyer's experience. But we're really talking about it twofold: how you can bring more value to the buyer's agents, and so that they have a better experience and they choose your home over the competition. But we're going to be really talking about today how you do that and how you create urgency in a shifting market. And so here we are, we're coming to you Friday. And if you were to put a home live on the MLS at 11:30 in the morning, and many agents, whether it be lower price points where they're lock boxes, or they be the luxury homes where a listing agent or someone on your team must accompany. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing to create some urgency a little bit different. So if you put a home on a Friday, what does that look like when you will actually allow showings? Talk to us about that and what the psychology is behind it, and what some of the best practices that you're implementing to differentiate, Collin.
Absolutely. So as you alluded to earlier, we are a secondary market. And the issue when you're having the conversation with the seller and you're trying to make sure that they know that they're attaining the best value, the typical traditional real estate process is, oh gosh, we'll list it on a Thursday and we'll have an open house on a Saturday and a Sunday. And we might have a showing on Friday and we might have 2 showings on Sunday. And you got somebody flying into town on Wednesday, but you got an offer on Monday that you have to respond to on Tuesday. All the while, your seller isn't feeling like they got the most out of that property. There was no competition. The sense of urgency was fractured. And one of the things that we're seeing right now is buyer reluctance, is buyers waiting. So in order to combat that, what I've strategically started doing is listing homes on a Friday.
Okay.
With everybody on the understanding within the not only just the agent language, but also the language online that, hey, we're not going to go ahead and do showings until the following Saturday or the following Sunday, whichever works best for the seller. And that's going to be within
8 or 9 days after you list it. So
exactly.
You put home on the market Friday. It's optimized. You got great photos, maybe a video, maybe a 3D tour.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second too. Because typically,
before you talk about that,
sorry,
no, it's okay. So just for those tuning in, talking to Collin Kelley, he's got a really unique system where he's in the secondary home market, and he literally, one of the things he's doing to create urgency, he puts, in this example, a home on Friday and doesn't allow showings to the following Saturday or Sunday, a full 8 or 9 days after. So let's just want to catch everybody up there. Continue.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about that within the photos, because so much of that marketing is critical up front. What we will do is we will put maybe the best 8 to 10 photos of the property out there. And if people want more, they request them. That way we can actually get into contact and start having those conversations and start creating those relationships, whether it be with the agents or with the individual buyers. Why do we do that? You know this, I know this. How many clients do we sit down with in our offices and we go through photos of a particular property before we go out there, and they've made the decision after looking at 50 photos whether or not they want to see the property right away, fair or unfair? That's typically the process. So what we strive to do, and what my team strives to do, and I do have 3 buyer's agents, but what we strive to do is create an environment where there's not as many photos, where you create that sense of allure and you have that sense of scarcity again that we had that worked so well back 12 months ago. And it works in your seller's favor, but it also works in the buyer inquiry favor. We listed on that Friday and we don't allow any showings out until that weekend. Why do we do that? We start having those conversations of marketing ahead of time. Hey, I've got so-and-so as my buyer and they've got, a house to sell in order to pick it up. You know what? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a conversation with my seller and see if they're open to the opportunity of letting you go ahead and go through first. That
people want to be first, process. Right? They want that preview. That's why on Black Friday, people line up to get that flat screen TV. There's a ball game. There's a waiting list. People want first. So you get the seller on board with this.
Exactly. And
What
the
kind of
seller's got to
wording
be
are
on
you,
board.
what kind of wording are you putting in there in the agent remarks, or centralized showing time, one of these services, or what are you putting on there? Is it just black and white? First, no showings until next Saturday between 11 and 1.
Now, I still allow showing time to occur, but obviously I'm approving things. And instead of rejecting or accepting right away, I'm calling and letting them know what the situation is. Oh my gosh, Michael, thank you so much for setting it up and setting the opportunity to go take I'll look at my listing at 123 Main Street. The unique thing about I know I put into the agent remarks those 6 unique features about Main Street. Would you like me to tell you about them?
Mm-hmm.
That home has that no other home in this price range has. Oh, okay, yeah, interesting. Let's go ahead and go with that. Hey, in this, Michael, this would probably be you. Collin, why did you only have 8 photos? This is a beautiful listing. It's 5,000 square feet. You only had 8 photos? Well, I wanted to get the chance to tell you about the most important features so that I can make you look good to your buyers so that you know that much more about that house. Because let's take a step back for a second. Typically, if you've got an agent, even not every agent, even in the luxury realm, shows up to their high dollar appointments, shows up to their $2, $3, $5 million showings.
Right.
You may be there alone. And typically in those homes, you're not talking about a tract home. You're talking about something that has very, very unique features. And those need to be pinpointed. And if I, as the listing representative, can help you as the buyer representative be able to point out those specific and unique features that are unique relative to any other home in that category or what's available out there, not only do you look better, but you create that level of comfortability with your buyer where they're more interested, they're more curious.
All right, so I like that. So, you're making a buyer's agent look good for them and their client. Perfect. Now, talk to me about the conversations you're having with the seller on the benefits to this strategy versus, wait, so Collin, if somebody wants to show it Monday or Tuesday, literally you're not going to show it. Yeah, let's role play a little bit. If I'm that seller,
absolutely
figure out the benefits of this. Like, hey, the market's shifting a little bit. I don't want to miss out on any showings in this strategy. Like, my friends think I'm nuts. Why are we doing this, Collin?
Perfect. So let's have that conversation. Okay. So what we have the ability to do is go ahead and say, if I have a conversation with with that buyer's agent, and they're ready to go, they need to get something done, they need to find something fast. You and I, Michael, as the seller, can go ahead and allow for an opportunity showing where we set that up ahead of time, where they have that ultimate buyer experience where they know that they're seeing something before anybody else is.
They have an exclusive opportunity. So that's how you handle it, where if I have a buyer, but they're only in town Sunday, they can't wait till next Saturday. They're in town now.
Exactly. Okay. It's like, well, I can appreciate that. Michael, let me get with my seller and have that conversation with them. Let them know what's going on. And I'll see if I can get the opportunity to get you through for that exclusive showing before anybody else is allowed to see it.
Okay, perfect. I like that. And so then let's talk about that following Saturday. Are you just opening it up for showings whenever, or are you having small, narrow windows in that first weekend so that there's some overlapping, almost like an open house, where people want to get it because they know somebody else is in there and like, oh, we're going to miss out.
And we got to break that down a little bit because it depends on how those first 9 days went. Because we set that up for the opportunity showings. We want it to sell before it ever gets to that Saturday. That's the goal. Okay. The people that are very interested and that are willing to step out there, the people that are willing to jump through the hoops are typically the ones that are your buyers, just like they were 12 months ago when they were writing offers that were 10, 20% over asking and waiving all their contingencies. So people still want to buy homes. We're in a business that's always going to exist because people always have to have a place to live. And within the luxury realm, when you have something that is very unique, it's putting that value proposition across why you want to get in, why you want to have that opportunity to be there before that Saturday. You think about maybe like Neiman Marcus or one of those other brands where you have a buyer that will go buy things for you, where you have that exclusive feeling. Or, if you've got an American Express card and there's certain opportunities that get you in before everybody else. It's that feeling of that ultimate experience. And that's what people, and you know this and as well as I do, in that luxury realm, what they expect. They don't care that this is X date out here. They want the opportunity to get in ahead of time.
Right.
And they're not
used to people telling them no either.
Say again?
They're not used to people telling them no, you can't have it. Right? They got money. So where are you putting in there no showings till next Saturday or Sunday? Where is that? Is that in the description? How does the general public know that? And because part of this strategy is creating urgency and the opportunity to see it beforehand. And so how do they know that? Where is it clearly defined no showings till next Saturday or Sunday?
That's a fantastic question. And I'm glad you asked that. I put that in both the agent remarks and in the showing remarks. And how I do it is I put that, the seller has specified no showings until that time frame, because so many of us are in MLSs that will say, hey, you have to make this showing available upon,
Listing it.
right away.
Right.
But here's the thing. I have yet to come across an MLS that actually defines what that means.
Sure.
And I belong to 4 different MLSs, and I've had to have conversations with all of those MLSs because I've been called to the mat for it. Hey, you're putting this out there as available, but it's not available until this date. Well, yeah, exactly. That's okay. Where in the rules does it stipulate that I have to make it available upon the buyer's request if it doesn't work for the seller?
Right.
Where is there anywhere in that language? And so that becomes, because I know that's a question that a lot of agents have with this strategy is, well, how are you able to do that? It's literally having the conversation with your MLS and knowing your MLS rules in terms of what you can put into your listing descriptions and into your ad copy that's going to benefit your sellers, and having that conversation with those MLSs in terms of how that actually benefits everyone as a whole, that they're on a level playing field, those other agents included.
That's a great point. So creating urgency. And so talk to me about some success stories. Talk to me about some things that you've seen where you've gone to market and you've sold ahead of time, or let's say, better yet, I'm sure you've had those success stories, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. In fact, when I was down at EXPCon, I had a listing that I brought on that was secondary waterfront over on Hayden Lake. Hayden Lake is a secondary lake to Coeur d'Alene, but there are many people that come up for it. There's 2 different golf courses there, 1 country club, and it's a smaller lake, but it's closer into town. So for a lot of people, it has that just trying to, I don't know Chicago as well. I don't know what your recreation is there. I'm kind of trying to relate it to something else.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We got listeners, people watching in Florida and out of the country right now. A lot of times people chime in where they're watching. So you have a lot of these success stories where it sells before next Saturday or Sunday. Talk to me about what does it look like?
Yeah. So specifically this one, for instance. So what we went ahead and did is we pushed that where we put it on a Friday. We didn't allow any showings until that date. And I was getting a plethora of calls. Now, part of that was our marketing looked really good. We did some neat things with some twilight photos that hadn't been seen in our market for some time. We, obviously we're always trying to focus on points of differentiation within our photos or drones, or whether it be 3D walkthroughs or what have you, so that there's a uniqueness point relative to what we put into our marketing versus what everybody else does. Mm-hmm. I can say unequivocally in my market, no one spends more money on marketing than I do. Yeah. And I put that forward, and I put together an expense sheet. And I show that to my sellers when I'm listing. Hey, the proof is in the pudding. Here you go. This is what we actually spend. But anyways, with respect to that particular listing out on Hayden Lake, there were a number of different people that went, hey, I've got to get through. I've got a client that has to get through on such and such date. We can't wait until that launch. Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and have a conversation with my sellers. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, these folks are cash buyers. They've got nothing to sell. They missed out on a property here earlier this week. Would you be open to allowing them to come through? And this was when I was down at EXPCon, so I had to have my assistant actually there. Would you be open to having them come through with my assistant being there and coming through and doing a walkthrough? Obviously they're very, very motivated. And of course the answer was yes. These folks came through ahead of time. They took their time, and then we had a showing stacked directly behind them as well. Not that we can always do that, but that is always my preference, is if I can stack showings behind. Well, long story short, we had a multiple offer situation. Even in November, when interest rates were at some of their highest points, on a price point that was double what our average market price point was, actually almost triple what our average market price point was. And we had waived contingencies, and we had a waived inspection, and that property sold in 21 days.
Oh, that's terrific. So that's one end of the spectrum. Talk to me about, you launch it, and it goes to that Saturday or that Sunday, are you limiting the window where those showings could occur? Is it like an open house type of showing? Like, hey, we're going to open the property from 11 to 1, come by with your clients or send your clients by. Are you doing kind of an open house and going back to those agents with an hour or two window so there's natural overlapping that creates urgency?
I have tailored this process. This is something that I've kind of gone unique with. I want people to see that there are real people coming through, that it's not when I do one of those 90-minute windows that, hey, you're coming through for a 15-minute interval. Yes, you'll have the ability to do a walkthrough after the fact, but I have these 6 buyers. By the way, here's showing time. Here's where they're lined up. You can see that these are legitimate, because I know there's a lot of buyers out there that think that, oh, well, that can't be right. There can't really be that many people that are coming through right now. Yeah. And it's showing them that really is the case. Number one, that's really true, because I think transparency and honesty are very, very critical. Yeah. And I also tailor the length of that showing time frame based upon how many folks we have coming through. If I only have 2 buyers coming through in that window after 9 days, then what I may do is only have that open for an hour and have each person go through for 30 minutes. And Collin, you might say to me, well, Collin, this is a large home. How are they going to get through that period of time? Well, write the offer, come back. There's you can always come back. You can write it contingent. You can have inspections. You can do all of these things. But for the most part, I have yet to have much pushback on people being in that long. And typically what ends up happening is those buyers run into each other if they're going overtime. And that usually, that benefits the seller. When buyers see each other coming and going, that's to the benefit of the seller.
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, those of you that are watching, Michael LaFido here, Luxury Fridays, have Collin Kelley on from Idaho. We're talking about ultimate buyer's experience. He mentioned earlier, taking care of buyer's agents, making sure they feel special. I use the term silver platter mentality. They got to feel like you're delivering the answers to their questions and the experience for them and their buyers on a silver platter. So we talked a little bit about that, and Collin just kind of went into the 7 or 8 day pause where you put the home on, but you don't allow showings until the following week. But naturally, you're going to get inquiries, and then you go back to that seller and see if they're going to be okay. I'm sure ahead of time you tell the seller, right? You manage your expectations. Hey, this is what we're trying to do. So I hope to have showings before next week, but I'll vet them, and then I'll come to you with those opportunities, and you give me the green light if those times work, and then myself or someone on our team will be there. Is that pretty accurate?
That is very accurate. That is very accurate.
Good. You and I, tell everybody a little bit how you first heard about Michael LaFido, and you shared with me something down in Orlando. Tell everybody about how you and I first met and the value that hopefully we're bringing to you and your team.
Absolutely. Well, we have the good fortune of a mutual friend of Brian Culhane, and Brian is actually who brought me over to EXP. It took him 2 years to get me over. I'm stubborn. But anyways, I came from Sotheby's as a background, and then made the move over, saw a lot of the luxury tools that we had within EXP, and even everything that we're expanding within our toolkit now, that we're integrating into our marketing, that really is something unique and rivals any other luxury brand. But anyways, I had numerous conversations with Brian, and he kind of leveraged you as, hey, Collin, you're a luxury agent. This is the guy that I've got here that you really need to meet. And I sought you out when we were down in Orlando. I said, oh, man, Michael, I don't have the Lux designation yet, but I've followed enough of the things that you've said. And here's some of the ways that I've kind of tailored that ultimate buyer experience, and how I've tailored my listing presentations in such a way that it benefits all parties. I don't believe in zero-sum economics. I believe that, in residential real estate, that there's all different kinds of winners, and making people feel that experience, not just on the listing side, which is typically what you and I do, but also on the buyer side, where they have that feeling that, hey, they got the home, they accomplished what they wanted. I believe that there's win-win in everything. And so that's something that I try to accomplish with every one of my circumstances. I believe that specific instance that I brought up to you was on a multiple offer type situation. And it was some of the skills within Lux that I utilized to push those offers back. It was something within the framework of counteroffer intelligence, where going back to those individual buyers and going, hey, here's the deal. We've got 5 offers. Why are you bringing in a listing price offer? You and I both know that's not going to work. How about you go back to your clients and give me your best offer? And strangely enough, more often than not, those buyers were the ones that ended up winning because they got that message through. It was getting that message through.
Yeah.
So it's just remembering that we're with your fellow agents, that we are not in competition, but we're in concert. We're working together. How do we work together towards a common goal?
Yeah, it's a great reminder. Thank you, by the way, for those nice words. But that's a great reminder. I just was in a multiple offer situation this past weekend. Good friends of ours put their home on, sold it above asking price. Literally, a lot of people laughed when they heard the price that we went on. But again, I identified some of the property strengths. The owner did an amazing job, and we accentuated those. And there was a void in the market. Just last night, I secured a $1.7 million listing. I was up against a guy that does a lot more volume than us, and I was up against a former luxury rock star agent. When I say former, she was one of the top 2 or 3 luxury agents in my market 15, 20 years ago. She's a little bit older now. She got a place out of state, and but still, you got to bring your A game. You never know who you're up against. So we just secured that one. And it's all about being transparent with people and making them, don't tell them what they want to hear, but be authentic, right? Be authentic. A lot of times these younger agents out there, they watch $1 Million Agent, or they want that quick, that easy button, right? There's no such thing as that was easy button, right? And so you got to be ingrained. You got to listen to people. And remember, nobody owes you, nobody owes me anything, right? You got to bring enough value so it's a no-brainer that they should hire you. Okay, but remember, the most listened to radio station that consumers listen to is what's in it for them. So when Collin's going on the listing appointment, all that seller cares about is, what are you going to do to sell my home for more money? Those buyer's agents, when he's talking about that silver platter, all they care about is, what are the features of this home and the benefits of this home that is more valuable than the guy down the street, so that my buyer will see that value, because nobody wants to overpay for something. So again, doing a good job as a marketing agent at articulating those benefits is going to be really important. Any questions, by the way, any questions for Collin Kelley or myself? Again, no matter where you're watching, you don't have to download anything. You can type in your questions right in the comment section. Those that are watching on Instagram, I'll try to get to your questions. It's much easier if you go to YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/luxury specialist. Again, Jermon, hey, how you doing, buddy? Thank you for joining. He's one of our regulars here. And if you guys are wherever you're watching, type in your question for Collin, type in your question for me. If you're watching a replay of this, shoot me an email, michael@marketingluxurygroup.com. Shoot me an email, michael@marketingluxurygroup, and I'll make sure I get over to Collin that question, or you get your question over to me. Let me ask you something. You left Sotheby's, and you're not with Sotheby's, you're with EXP, but it doesn't matter if you're with XYZ or you're with Cobo Banker, or you're with a boutique. Talk to me about some of the limiting beliefs that maybe you had to overcome when you left a luxury brand like Sotheby's. Some people think Compass is a luxury brand, or Douglas Elliman. It's all different. There's boutiques in your market that I've never heard of, right? But that are luxury brands. Tell me a little bit about some of the struggles that internally you went with, where I'm leaving a luxury brand for a brand that maybe isn't known for luxury. What kept you awake at night?
Well, and that was, to reiterate kind of what we talked about before, why it took 2 years for Brian to get me to make the jump. It was one of those things where I'd gotten that comfortability with a particular brand, knew what those marketing materials look like, et cetera. And Sotheby's does an amazing job of making everything very generic. And it doesn't matter if you show are very, very new, or you're very, very skilled as a luxury agent, everything looks very pretty. Everything looks very, very similar and looks very, very good. Where the struggle for me lay, and nothing wrong with that whatsoever, is that was hard to differentiate. If you just went with that generic listing package, and I dare say I don't want to go generic. I don't want to say anything negative here.
Sure.
But that it was just so rudimentary, and I felt like there were always more things that I was trying to add. I'm a big believer that no competitive advantage lasts forever, and so you've always got to be looking forward. We were way back 13 years ago. We were some of the first people to bring in that HDR type photography into our market. In fact, that we were the first people to bring it into our market. And so that was a unique niche that lasted for all of about 3 to 6 months. Once people started asking those questions, something that we still leverage, and we don't necessarily put it out there openly in our marketing, but we do it when people request it, especially if they're not going to be able to see a property ahead of time, is Matterport 3D. As of this date, and my stats, I believe, are from back in July 2022, only 2% of listings in the United States actually had 3D photography, which to me is kind of amazing. I was actually interviewed for our local paper here, the Coeur d'Alene Press, on where I felt that was going to go. I still feel like once we get stabilized, I feel like that's still going to be the wave of the future. Buyers want to be able to see as much as they can ahead of time and be educated. But our job as the listing agents is to make it something where our property sizzles and where they have to ask those questions and come to us as the resource. And so we can't, there's a fine dance between putting as much beautiful marketing out there as possible and still having that allure. Ruth's Chris, for instance, they don't sell steaks. Anybody can sell a steak. Ruth's Chris sells the sizzle. When you go to Ruth's Chris, they bring that plate out. It's still hot. It's popping. That's where the interest is. You have to raise that napkin up to make sure you're not getting grease all over your white shirt. And I'm wearing a white shirt right now, which is always makes me paranoid. But anyways, that's where you have to think of your marketing being, is you're selling the sizzle. What makes you different on a marketing level with the same product? Because there's really only 3 things that we can affect: price, condition, marketing. And it brings me into another point with respect to, if you feel like you're in those pricing discussions with your sellers, and I get from Friday to that next Friday, and people will ask me, well, what do you do if you don't have much interest? Well, I don't know about you. I'm in communication with my listers, with my sellers daily on those. If I'm not getting calls in that price range on that Saturday, going, hey, Monday we may need to adjust here. We went through the weekend. You know what? Where we were priced at, I know this is what we thought we were going to go into, but we've got to be very, very competitive. And the fact that we haven't gotten any calls to get into this one, we may need to adjust this price. Conversely, and this is something I'm still tweaking. If I get 5 phone calls the first day, we also set that expectation as well. And my sellers are aware of all of those on their way through.
Well, that's really some great insights. Again, to recap, Collin Kelley talking a little bit about both the ultimate buyer's experience, so that the buyer's agents can go back to their clients with more information on the property, bring more value to them. It's a win-win, makes that buyer's agent look good. But he also talks about creating urgency with a process that he uses. And differentiate is key. Differentiate. You talked about the 3D tour. For me, I'm a big video guy, more so than the Matterports. Certain clients don't want every room photographed. They don't want you to see every nook and cranny. So you can think about security there. But some really good insights, Collin. I appreciate what you're doing. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way to get in touch with me, you can reach out to me in my email, which is my first name, Collin, at Founders, like Founders of the Nation, foundersgroupnw.com. And then you can reach out to me as well at go ahead and send me a text, 208-597-3700. I wanted to key in on something else that you just said as well.
Please.
With respect to these luxury properties, and one of the reasons that I'm very careful with these Matterports for specifically that reason, especially in these upper tier properties, we'll require a non-disclosure agreement in order to release those out. We don't necessarily put those out openly on the market because, as you and I know, the internet's forever to one degree or another. Even if the hosting goes down on one of those, For security purposes, you can't just necessarily put those things out there. So I'm very, very careful to let people know what that looks like and whether we host it internally, or whether they're okay with it going out to Zillow and catching every possible marketing eye there is. But that's a very, very valid point. And to your point as well, you've got to leverage video as well. People ask me what's more important, video or 3D, and my answer is always both.
Good. Well, I appreciate your time, Collin. Keep raising the bar, and hope to see you at a upcoming conference. I'm going to be in New York at the Inman Conference. That's my next event. I appreciate what you're doing for the industry, and it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, thank you again. Always a pleasure, Michael.
All right, thank you. Collin Kelley. Collin mentioned photos and video. You're absolutely right. And 3D tours. Everybody's got different perspective. He answered both, and I think that's a great answer. If you were to say one or the other, I think you can leverage video more through SEO, through YouTube, through social media. But I do think 3D tours are important for the right properties. I just toured a $22.9 million property in Fort Lauderdale. And without playing Monday morning quarterback on the previous agent, the owners provided the agent with professional photos and the agent used those. The agent didn't even take his own photos. There were definitely some voids in the way that home was positioned through drones and through video and through social media and accentuating the best features. And that's really what a marketing agent's job is to do, is position the home in its best light possible. Again, want to share with you guys one thing as well. I had somebody recently reach out to me about coaching. Their goal was to make $500,000 in 2023 as an agent. And so I want to share with you some quick math on what I shared with them. So their annual goal was $500,000. Again, there's 52 weeks in a year. They wanted to take 2 weeks off, so 50 working weeks in their calendar year. And they said on average, they worked about 40 hours a week. They'd like to work less, but the reality is through prospecting, lead gen, positioning their properties, homes, about 40 hours a week. So the math is real simple. 50 working weeks, 40 hours a week. That's 2,000 working hours in a year. If they want to make $500,000, you divide that by the working hours that they're going to work in a year. And so that equals $250 per hour. So I challenge them to work on things that are lead gen and the green zone, so to speak, that was on our last podcast. Again, our last podcast just released this morning, our 224th podcast. You can check that out by going to luxurylistingpodcast.com. But you got to ask yourself, in this case, is what I'm doing worth $250 an hour? If it's filling up flyers. I had a client reach out to me yesterday about hanging an under contract sign. I delegate that out to a third-party service. I wish they would have got out there a little bit quicker for my client. But yes, could I have run out there or my assistant to put it under contract? But you got to know what your hourly rate is so you can focus on income-producing activities or producing activities that will get your client's home sold versus getting stuck in the weeds of the mundane activities. So I hope this is helpful to you. So figure out what your annual goal is income-wise, figure out how many weeks you want to take off, and then figure out how many hours a week on average you work, and then divide that, and you'll calculate what your hourly rate is. I hope this is helpful to you. As always, if you have a question for me, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email, Michael@Marketing Luxury Group. It's on the screen right now, Michael@MarketingLuxuryGroup.com. And just a reminder, we are going to be launching. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to be dropping in right now a link in the comments section to the top luxury secondary home markets of 2022 last year. You can click on that link that I just put in the comments section. But I do want to share with you, if you'd like more information on our next training, go to luxurydesignation.com. It's going to be in Cabo. And I also want to let you know about a book opportunity. If you want to contribute to our next book, which is called Secrets of Top Luxury Agents, shoot me a note, shoot me an email, call me, find me on the internet. My name is Michael LaFido. Until next time, I appreciate you. Keep raising the bar in the industry. Make others feel better. Don't be arrogant. Humility is a good thing. I'm coaching up an agent, won't mention his name. He needs, just a reminder. It's okay to be confident, but don't come across as arrogant. Sellers or buyers don't want to work with arrogant people. Nobody owes you anything. My name is Michael LaFido. Keep raising the bar for the industry. Until next time, prove others wrong.